Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good
We are
morning.
so happy to have some mums on the call already, but I'm sure people will be joining as we speak. Busy morning for everyone. I know it's not always easy to take time out of your busy day. And thank you for Maguelonne Rousseau, who is joining us this morning. And we're going to talk all about conscious parenting. We might get into, I'm not sure if we'll have time, we might get into sleep talk and introduce very briefly how Maguelonne also works with trauma, moms who've had really difficult births, children actually who've experienced a very difficult birth, and trauma in any form or shape, which we will talk about in more detail in March. We've just set the date for that, so excited to have you on the call for that as well. And I think we'll start by you introducing yourself and what your background is and how you came to be this well-rounded counselor and coach that you are.
Yeah, okay. So hi everyone, and thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with BumpWise mommies and parents in general. So basically I'm a counselor. So I'm a mom of three. So maybe that actually explains why parenting is such a dear topic to me. I'm a mom of three. My three kids, they are from 13, so teenage years, 9 and 5-year-olds. So I have like different flavors, different stages. And I think it's very important to understand better your kids. And when you become a parent, that's when you start to ask those questions you never asked for yourself before. And that's basically how I started to go into parenting, because I wanted to understand better my kids. I wanted to understand better myself, because we think only kids are growing and we're helping kids to grow, but actually we grow ourselves as adults. And that's basically how I started my journey. And so I'm a counselor. I'm helping usually adults, but also kids sometimes, about a lot of different topics, different things. But the two main topics I'm really dealing with, and I love to deal with, is actually parenting. That's why my company is called Conscious Parenting, and also trauma, as you mentioned. So how we can help people to overcome traumas, because everybody go through little traumas, big traumas, and that can impact our life in many different ways. And I think it's actually good to have methods that are actually working, evidence-based methods that can help you. And instead of being stuck for sometimes years, you can unstuck yourself very quickly. So that's basically what I do in a nutshell.
Amazing. That is a great elevator speech. Love it. We've gone to the 42nd floor at least. But anyway, for conscious parenting, I think this topic is really important because, as you say, we're all adults, but the reality is that this process that you mamas or we go through when we become a parent, what the process that we call matrescence, is just like in the teenage years. It is a rewiring of our brain.
Yeah.
And so it's really important, I think, to acknowledge that and realize that there's a lot happening. And I find that obviously moms attend antenatal classes, and that's great. And they learn about breastfeeding, and that's great too. Really, really important. But what not so many people think about is parenting.
Mm-hmm.
You are actually starting to parent when your baby is tiny, tiny, tiny. And the way we approach this is really important, even in the early days. But then the parenting never stops. My eldest is 32 now.
Wow, congrats.
She needs less hand holding for sure, and she can, make her own food and stuff like that. But she still needs me as a
Yeah,
mom as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
And so I
absolutely.
think we constantly evolve. And I think it's really important that we think about the kind of parent we want to be, especially because we are all very different too. And I mean, I'd like you to touch upon that actually, Maguelonne, because I know
Mhm,
that your husband is from a different country as well.
mhm,
So you have
mhm.
culture coming into the mix as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably Moroccan, right?
Mhm.
Experienced a very different parenting style
Yeah.
from what you as a French person would have had. And I think this is true for so many people in our group, mixed marriages and so on, and how we make all of this happen.
Mhm.
Okay, I talk too much.
No, no, absolutely not. I think it's what you've said is exactly spot on, right? When you are a parent, it's not just how to learn how to feed a baby and change diapers and understand cues of a baby. Of course, it is very important, and you have to do that, and you need to go for classes or get like help from people who can help you on that because you need to learn that. But it's so much more than that. And that journey you will have to do by yourself because you can have expert explaining to you. And that's what I do in my classes. I explain about the brain, how the brain evolves, how it changes and what you can do. And what you said also about, we're getting wired differently when you are a parent. We know that. I mean, science shows that when you're pregnant, your brain will change. And
Yes.
it's actually for a good thing. I mean, sometimes you feel like the brain fog and all of that. That's also true. But it's actually really helping you to connect better to your child, which also means you see life differently. And that's really much about what is conscious parenting. So, and I love also when you said that you have a child of 32 years old and she still needs you. And, I'm not going to reveal my age, but I feel I still need my parents. So maybe, of course, not every day, but at some point you still feel like, oh, I wonder what my parent thinks of that. Maybe I can ask their advice because they do have experience. And I think also as a conscious parents, that's definitely what I want to do with my kids, is how can I make sure that we get that relationship, even though my kids are young and needs me a lot now. How can I keep that relationship strong even when they are adults and they actually don't need me on everyday basis, but we still have that strong communication channels opens, So
Yeah.
I feel that's really what conscious parenting is about. And that's what I try to explain to parents when they're trying to deal with, let's say, tantrums when my child is 2. So I'm like, okay, but so what do you want? What values you want to teach when you're using that method? What values you want to teach? What do you think you actually teaching your child that your child will keep even as an adult? So what is it that you want to teach? What kind of adult you want your child to be? So those lessons they are learning from day one, right? Even in the womb, actually. So the way you live your life, the way for yourself, the kind of role model you are for your child, all of that has a very big importance, and that's what you learn in conscious parenting, and or just being a parent. And that's why this journey, nobody can really do that for you. You will have to experience. And going on to being different, yes, so that's also that. Conscious parenting is about getting to know yourself, getting to know your partner, because that's also when you start to see the difference in parenting with your partner. So before having kids, usually no problem, lovely relationship. I mean, sometimes you have problems, right? But usually it's okay, you can deal with that. After that, you might feel like, oh, but we have a lot of differences, and then we disagree on how to deal with our kids, and then you also have to deal with that with your partner. And so being a parent, it's not like you cannot parent in a vacuum. It's a lot of different things. It's a dynamic process. So it's also dealing with your partner, dealing with your own childhood, with your memories, maybe with the society you live in, with your families, your own family, your family-in-law, and it's all of that. And you have to make sense of that in a way that makes sense to you, so you can keep having that compass. And no right or wrong, but knowing what you want for yourself, for your kids as a family, helps you to keep going to that direction you want to go. So
Yeah.
it's not easy. That's the one thing I say in my parenting classes. I never say it was easy. I never say I lift the guilt. Guilt is part of the package of parenting. But yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So tell us a little bit what conscious parenting actually means, because I think there's a lot of noise out there with parenting at the moment. And in particular, I want you to talk about what the difference is between conscious and respectful parenting.
Mhm. Yeah. So for me, conscious parenting is more deeply a way of thinking about what I do as a parent. When I do this or when I don't do that, what kind of consequences it will have, and can I bear the consequences? Can I understand those consequences, and can I be happy with it? So it's more about that. Then you do have a lot of different methods. What I often say also is conscious parenting is not a method, because you might do something one day and you might realize, oh, it's not working for me or for my family or for my child, so maybe I change and I do something different, and that's totally fine. This is really the process of being conscious. I understand what I do, and then also accept whatever is coming from it. Then you do have a lot of different methods. So you have, Montessori, respectful, positive parenting, a lot of that, and that's great. And I'm like, if that speaks to you, it's great, because if you can use different methods, you will pick, different advices, different ideas from different methods, and I'm totally fine with that. I think there are great ideas in many different methods, but for me, it's more about being conscious about what you're doing, because maybe you cannot apply everything from Montessori, everything from different methods, which is totally fine. I don't think it doesn't make you a respectful parent or non-Montessori or conscious parenting if you don't do everything to the T. You have to just also get to know yourself, so know what works for you and what doesn't work. And that's why for me, conscious parenting is more about empowering the parent. So I'm not telling parents what they have to do. I'm giving them information about, science-based, brain, stress, what happens, so they understand better their kids, themselves. And I ask the questions, what do you want for yourself? And we have that discussion so they can make up what they want for their families, with their values, with their religions, with their culture, especially in Singapore, where you have so many different cultures, as you mentioned, and families. So it's not about I'm telling you what to do, it's I'm helping you to make sense of what you want and where to get there. And knowing that mistakes is part of the parenting game. You will make mistakes, and that's fine. That's totally fine.
Hopefully we'll learn from that as well.
Absolutely.
What are the biggest benefits, you would say, of conscious parenting? And because you're following mummies on the call, or daddies even, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. I will try and ask them at an opportune moment, and we'll try and get to everything. Okay, so biggest benefits of conscious parenting.
Oh, I think it's to feel like to be empowered and to lift a little bit that guilt. Because I think one of the things most parents tell me about, and I feel it's like, I feel guilty because I feel I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing the right thing. Okay. When you become a conscious parent, you understand that you're doing the best with what you have at that precise moment. And you also know it's okay to make mistakes, as you mentioned, to learn from them, and sometimes to change, say, okay, that's not working, then I'm going to try and find something different. So it's also that flexibility, and that really helps you to feel more empowered. So then you compare yourself less to others, because you know that what you do, you're doing because you know it's working. So you feel less judged by others, you judge less others. So I think it also helps with having more empathy. And also, most of the time, you start to have better habits for yourself as a conscious parent, because you know you are a role model. And that's actually a great benefit, because, since I've got kids, I eat better food, healthy food, I watch less TV and all of that. And I think it's actually good also, because my kids learn from me. So that would be a big benefit. So I would say that the main one would be to feel more empowered. So on a daily basis, you have doubts, but deeply inside of you feel like, it's okay. I'm just where I'm supposed to be. I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm enjoying that journey of parenting.
Amazing. And circling back to what I've asked earlier, respectful versus conscious, what is actually the difference?
So I'm not an expert in respectful, because you need to have like a training and all. So I cannot really talk about respectful, but it's mainly, many things are the same. Many things are very similar. So the idea is like you respect your child as a person. So your kids are not pets. You're not just saying, do this, do that, don't do it, etc. So it's a lot about understanding emotions, understanding that your child is different from yourself. From maybe when you have, several kids, you see that, oh, that kid is different from the other one, and not just putting everybody in the same, package, right? So you learn that also. So it's a lot about respecting, emotions, respecting the fact that this person is a person. It's not just like a property. This child doesn't belong to you, so you have a responsibility to care, but this child doesn't belong to you.
Yeah, this is really interesting as well, to realize that different kids might need a different parenting style in a way, just because how they are wired and understanding what their needs are as well, right?
Yeah. So the similarity again would be also that because you are very attentive, then you see those differences instead of putting every kid in the same box, so that would be what really helps you to become that parent you want to be.
Okay, let me just look at the chat box. Okay, great. You just a mum commenting that it was a good delineation between the two styles. Okay, so does that mean that conscious parenting is very laissez-faire,
Yeah.
That and does that as a consequence, because I think that's what a lot of our parents run into, with parents being, in their ears all the time, that, if you're being respectful towards your child, you're being too permissive. You basically don't teach them, they're not learning discipline. And I think this goes hand in hand with also asking myself is, or maybe I'll ask that later, what do if there are different opinions in parenting style? Grandparents, for example, play a big role in that kid's life. So first, let's talk about discipline. How does discipline fit into conscious parenting?
Yeah. So it's a great question you ask, because that's often the what I have to explain about conscious parenting and the fears you have behind people who feel like, oh, conscious parenting, respectful, positive, all of that. It's basically being permissive. And the reality is actually it's not, because in the idea of conscious parenting is, you are still the boss in this relationship, the boss in the way that you are the adult, so you know better. You know that eating chocolate cake for dinner, probably not a good idea. So you have to say no to that, right? So you understand that you are still the one making the final call. That's what I mean by being the boss. But it doesn't mean you don't take into account your kids, the situation, the environment, and everything. So it's really the difference. So a lot of people are trying to go into conscious parenting or respectful or whatever type of parenting that is labeled as positive, but they come from what we call an authoritarian style of parenting. So actually, I'm the boss and shut up and I do what I say. This style of parenting, which is often the style of parenting we not all come from, but mostly we have that kind of parenting in our from our parents. And when we try to do a bit differently, because we actually feel like we maybe were not listened to much by our parents as kids, we want to offer different things to our kids. That's often when we slip into the permissive parenting. The permissive parenting would be, you the boss, or you crying because you want this. Okay, I'm giving it to you because I want to be a good parent. I want you to feel good. So the main thing to understand is your role as a parent is to be a guide, to help your kids understand, the main rules of this life. For sure, that's the discipline. But your goal is not to make your child happy every second of the way. Your role is to help your child to sometimes feel bad, but being able to bounce back. That's what we call the resilience, and using healthy coping mechanisms. So what I mean by that is, instead of to feel good, I go for a cookie, or I go for food, or I go for Netflix later, or whatever it could be, but I actually learn how to accept my own feelings, acknowledge my feelings, stay with it for a little moment, so then I can actually learn how to feel better and bounce back. So that is actually resilience. So that would be,
And then since we're talking about feelings already, I think one of the big things that we're facing with, especially with toddlers and so on, actually also with teenagers, the big emotions.
Yeah.
Oh, the tantrums, where we reach an impasse and we just do not know how to handle the situation.
Mhm.
What's your approach to that, or your advice? How do we sit with these big feelings, and how do we help our children control their emotions a little bit better?
Mhm. Yeah. So that's a big topic. That's I would say the number one topic I think in parenting, and it's not easy because the thing is again is when you see your child having those big emotions. I don't like to call negative because negative sounds like we shouldn't have those. But I mean, when you're humans, you feel sad, you feel angry, you feel, all of those emotions. So it's more like big and painful emotions. So when you see your own flesh going through those very difficult times, the feeling for yourself is you actually want to stop that. And that's when you go into the parenting. Usually you don't want to go. Either you give in or you start to be very angry yourself because your child is angry, you get angry, and then you're going to go to big punishments or things, or you might say stuff you regret later. So that would be the like what's happening. So it's important to understand yourself, what's going through, because inside of yourself, like the anger and everything. So it's managing yourself first. And second is also understanding that it's okay to feel that way. It's okay for your child to feel very disappointed because your child cannot brush teeth with Nutella, because maybe your child thinks it's a great idea to do that because it sounds lovely, right? So when you say no, they're going to be very angry and they might say very bad stuff to you, like you the worst mommy ever and all of that. And that's going to trigger you, right? So it's understanding that your child might be very disappointed, feel very bad inside, and that's okay because it's part of life. But also being there for your child so the child doesn't feel alone. The child feels like I always have a support. I always have somebody I can count on when I don't feel good, and guiding your child depending on the age, what can they do to feel better again? Okay. And managing your own emotions. So if it's very difficult to manage your own emotions, probably means that's, you need to deal with stuff from your own childhood. That's where the counseling might be a good place to start, because you might need to talk about your own childhood, and that will help you to unpack stuff so you can stay calm and present, in the moment, so you can be there for your child. So I love using mantras. One of my big mantra was, she needs my help. Right now, she needs my help. And that was helping me to actually not go into angry mode, but staying the mom and keeping, acknowledging her emotions, for example.
Amazing. We have so many amazing questions coming in. I love it, Mom.
Great.
Them coming. Really great. So I'll start with one. What is your approach to align parenting styles when both parents come from different cultural backgrounds? Like, this mom is German, husband is Indian. And although we respect the same values and try to be conscious parents for our 2-year-old daughter, we do not always respond in the same way, which may be confusing for us.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. So I think it's great to have a proper discussion, between the parents, and actually, put down, okay, what do we want? What kind of child we want to have? What kind of parents we want to be? What values are important for us? And how do we think we can enforce those values? How can we pass on those values? And when we're using that type of parenting, is it from our own childhood without thinking about it? Or is it actually a conscious, thing we want to do? So usually I give that example. It's a very silly example, but in some families you are not allowed to jump on the couch. It's like a no. Okay, so if you're just carrying on that value or that idea from your own childhood without really thinking about it, maybe that's a red flag, because you need to think, okay, but why? Is that because I don't want my child to hurt himself, which is a valid reason? Or is it because, I don't want my child to damage the couch? Or actually, I don't care because maybe there is carpet on the floor. It's not my, and the couch is old, and actually, I don't care. So when you actually really think about those things, it helps you to find what you want really for yourself. So you might carry some values, because I don't believe nothing is good from your own childhood, and nothing is all good or nothing is all bad. So you might want to carry some values. You might want to, realize, okay, that is not for me. My parents used to freak out because of mess, but actually I don't mind. And so you will define your own values. So speaking with your partner and putting down things and taking time to do that is actually important. So you know why you're doing the things you're doing, and then you can decide, okay, so when we have a tantrum, what kind of values we want to show our kids, what is important for us and why, and how can we do that. And that's how, definitely talking with, a specialist or expert in parenting can really help you, because then I help parents to make sense of what they want, and then, give ideas of how they can deal with specific situations.
Yeah. And sometimes it's all about picking your battles as well, is what I find. You can't constantly say no, 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 no.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That, because it's in the child's nature to want to explore, and that's how they learn. So how can we do that and support that in a safe way with obviously those pillars that are really important to us, and observing and as well. So okay, so we know, we talk to our partner, we come up with a mood board, or almost, of how we want to parent, and really make these topics important and talk about them, rather than letting them accumulate and then putting a strain on the relationship as well, because that's the other thing that could happen, right?
Absolutely.
When it comes, though, because that's our next question, to parents or parents-in-law, to you, if our parenting style is different to parents or parents-in-law, how do you suggest we set boundaries with them, considering the Asian culture we're in? They like to touch, pat bottoms and chest while playing with my 3-year-old. I practice body boundary at home, insist my children to eat more. I practice separation of duties at home, negatively commenting on the clothes that my child chooses. I'm currently saying no to them and explain why, but the differences are so many. This is just an introduction into handle the parents and so on, and how do we get to is it for a child that there are different rules with different people?
Yeah, so that's again a question I have a lot, and how to deal with grandparents or helpers and stuff like that. So helpers, it would be a little bit different. If it's your helper, then you can actually train your helper. You can tell them how you want them to relate to your kids, what they can say and not say. So it's a little bit different. With grandparents, with relative, it's a little bit different, because you need to still be respectful to them, right? And to the way they deal with stuff, and also, put some boundaries. So it's not always easy, but the one thing also I really put the emphasis for parents is there are many things you can control, and there are other things you cannot control, and it's okay. And your kids will learn a lot from different people, because later, if we're talking about toddlers, maybe they're not going to school yet. Later, they will go to school at some point, I suppose. They will meet other people, other friends who are parented different ways. They will meet teachers, and you cannot control what those people will say or do to you with your kids. So I think understanding that you cannot control everything is okay. And as long as you parent in a certain way, your kids will benefit greatly, especially at a young age, from your own parenting, and they will learn, and they might ask you questions, but why grandpa is doing this? And I don't like when grandpa is doing that. Okay, you can then teach your child to say respectfully, maybe, grandpa, when you do this, I don't like it. Can you ask permission? Or, and you can gently teach also grandparents how to do that, because when you actually are respectful, you know how to set up your boundaries to others in a respectful way, in a way that is, when your boundary is valid, there is no need to be aggressive or angry or anything. It's just like people doing things in a different way. So I feel like it's at the same time knowing that you cannot control everything, and that's not what you want. Your kids will learn from different people, the way you deal with your kids has the most impact at the beginning, for sure. So your kids will learn mainly from the way you do things, and then also how to set up the boundaries and say, maybe for some things, respectfully, can you do that in a different way? I would like you to, talk to me in a different way, or it really helps. And that's actually a great learning for you as a parent, because sometimes we don't know how to do that. And when you're doing that, you're actually showing your kids how to do that. Okay, so that's also a way to show kids how to stand up for themselves in a way that is respectful, that usually people accept with not so much issues.
And obviously, depending on the age, I would be helping my child have that
of course.
as the other adult.
Yeah.
Okay. We've touched upon it briefly, but I'll still want to ask the question that we've got here: what the pros and cons of a child growing up with a helper? That's a situation that a lot of us have, where both parents are working, and to have that consistency again with the helper, following the same rules that we have established at home as well. Easy earlier with the parents, and with what are your thoughts?
So I think also that's very valid questions, because when your child doesn't spend a lot of time with you and then you have a helper, so again, depending on the age, right? It will depend on the age, but I think if you have a great helper, if she loves kids, so it's very important she actually loves being with kids and caring for kids and babies. So if we're talking about babies and young kids, I think it could be a great addition, especially if as a parent, you cannot be there often because, for example, work. Okay, so it's important for kids to feel like they are cared for, they have that one-on-one relationship, and if you train your helper and your helper is great and she has a great positive energy, I think that could be very beneficial for kids. But of course, what you have to remember as a parent is your helper will never be like a parent. She will never replace a parent. So that's something you have to know. And yes, your kid is wired to be with you, to be with the parent 100% of the time. So if that's not possible, your child will miss that. But I think having a helper will not be necessarily something negative. It depends really on the helper, and it depends how you deal with the helper. So I feel like if you cannot be there with your child very often because of work, then I think having a good helper you can count on and you feel really relaxed that your child is with your helper, it's a great thing. But also knowing that your kid will still want to be with you and will still have that feeling of, I want more of you. Our kids are biologically wired for that. So it's nothing we can do against that.
And you do have conscious, what is it called? Conscious nanny?
So it's called Mary Poppins Conscious Nanny. So I have a class. So I have exactly that class to help us understanding the mindset behind conscious parenting, so they can start to develop that great connection. I think it's much better to have a helper who has a great connection, so it's very close to your child, so they can care for them in a way that is very connecting and everything. So your child will get that one-on-one connection, especially from a very young age, especially when you cannot be there. But even when you're there and you need help, sometimes it's great to have a helper who understands a bit more the concept. So how to play with kids, how to connect with them, but also how to discipline them. So how to deal with more challenging situations.
Another question, they're piling up. A more practical question: from what age does it make sense to set boundaries that toddlers can understand? Clear when it's about safety, but sometimes not so clear which are the battles worth picking. For example, our 13-month-old gets very frustrated if he wants something we don't give to him.
So it's, some boundaries they will not understand, because as this mom says, it's a question of safety and they don't understand yet, right? So let's say I have to put my toddler in a car seat. It's a safety issue. They don't get it, right? They don't get it because they don't have the brain maturity to understand the possible consequences of a car accident if I'm not in my car seat. Okay, so that you will have to enforce that. So, you know, expecting your child to understand, that won't work. It's more like a habit. So if you do that very early, they will have that habit, and that will be okay usually. But you might have the occasional or more than occasional, you know, fight with the car seat. So that will be until your child understand better and why they have to do that, and just accept it. Okay, so you don't have a specific age. It really depends on kids, and many things when they are toddlers. Usually we say no because of safety or because of, you know, healthy habits, like the example of the chocolate cake for dinner. So the best is actually to manage the environment instead of expecting the child to understand rules and then being angry or frustrated because they still don't understand that the chocolate cake in the fridge is not for them to eat for dinner. I think it's better maybe to not have chocolate cake in the fridge for a while, you know, and helping your child to, and expecting your child to understand those exceptions a little bit later. Right. So it's more like managing the environment for the toddler age, rather than, you know, expecting kids to understand the rules or not giving rules. Like, oh, he cannot understand, so no need for me to give the rules yet because he cannot understand. Some rules needs to be enforced, and that's it.
Yeah. There's a follow-up on that earlier question with the tantrums or frustrations. Are there any recommendations for rituals or activities for self-regulation or frustration management that are helpful for young toddlers? I mean, this one is only 13 months old, but I think you can't start too early.
Exactly, you cannot start too early. So that's why I think, you know, when you have a baby and your baby cries and you pick up your baby and you comfort your baby and you are calm yourself, you actually already teaching your baby how to self-regulate. It will take time because it takes a lot of time to get to self-regulate. I mean, a lot of adults don't know how to self-regulate, right? So expecting toddlers or even teenagers, actually for teenagers, a different story, but it will take time. So the more you actually help that vagus nerve, we're talking self-regulation is vagus nerve. So it's being able to have a good response from your vagus nerve, so you can go back to calm mode, rest and digest mode faster. And this, we know that, for example, for a baby, and I think for a toddler, that's a great things I would still do, is actually picking up a toddler, patting a toddler, and like being there with your toddler and saying, okay, I'm here. It's okay. I know you're frustrated. I understand. I know that chocolate cake sounds so yummy. So I would acknowledge emotions. I would describe the situation. Like, oh yeah, this toy seems so good with so many colors. Oh yeah, I'm sure you love to play with that toy, but we can't play with that toy now because we need to go. And that's it. So you just understand what your child is going through, but it doesn't mean you give it to your child, and you're just there. And then you don't do big lectures. We often, you know, do a lot of lectures trying to reason with the kids. When your child is in a tantrum, you cannot reason with a child. Your child is in fight or flight mode. So you need to help your child to go down to rest mode. So then you have access to a more reasoning part of your brain. So after you can explain. So usually it's better to explain the situation after. Your child will learn, will understand and learn better. But again, realistic expectations. Your child cannot learn just one time. A lot of things around what your child ate before, a birthday party, super excitement, being tired, being sick, teething growing, a lot of things will also impact how your child can regulate emotions. So when you have a full understanding, it's easier for you to actually manage those moments.
Yeah. We had a talk a while ago, and it might be one of those that unfortunately got lost when our Facebook got hacked. But we learned that tapping is a really good source, even at a very, very young age. They maybe don't do the tapping for themselves, but we do it for them, and it regulates the nervous system.
Absolutely. So I love the tapping. So you can do the full EFT tappings, but otherwise I also do what we call the body talk tapping. So you just tap on the top of the head, you just tap on the heart center and on the gut, and you just tap and you can just say, oh yeah, it's very annoying to not get what we want, and then you're just tapping and you're breathing at the same time. So another thing I actually show my kids, so I use a lot of techniques for myself in front of my kids, and then I see my kids doing it. So for example, if I feel stress, I might just breathe, and then I see my kids doing that, even if it's like nothing with me, right? They're doing something annoying, and or like they cannot do something with the toy or whatever, and then they're going to say, they're going to do this like this. So, and actually I realized, oh, actually I think it's me doing that, and it's just like, you know, looking at me. So I think for young kids it could be pretending you're blowing a balloon. So you're blowing in the balloon with your hands getting bigger and bigger, and then you let the balloon going away in the sky and you watch the balloon going away. So with kids using imagination, it's a great, great tool. I think you should use it. I mean, even for us, for adults, it works. It's like, you know, when we visualize stuff. So when you use your imagination, you can really help to get away with that. And then you can, you know, have a debriefing. Oh, wow, you were very angry earlier. Yeah, you want to tell me about it? What happened? Then you can help the child understand what went through, naming the emotion, because when you name, you help your child to understand what's going through for them, what's going on for them, because they often, you see people, they don't understand, they don't know how to name their own emotions. They just feel bad. They don't know, what is it? Is it like anger, frustration, fear, you know, I don't know, like being, you know, like a lot of different difficult emotions. So I think it's great also to name the emotion and to help the kids. So it could be a lot of different things. I love also the grounding experience. I help my kids to be in the here and now. So you use your 5 senses. You're going to say 5 things you can see, then 4 things you can hear, then 3 things you can smell, then 2 things you can touch, and 1 thing you can taste. And then when you do that, you go through that process, it helps you to be in the here and now, and it will help you to calm down instead of being in your anger brain and, you know, stress.
I love that. I think we need a session on those tools alone, because I think they would be so helpful not only for the children, but for the adults, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a list of that.
Prior to very young children is interesting because, some techniques are maybe better than others. But I'm a big fan of, for example, talking a lot to your baby. I was actually going to ask you, how do we apply the conscious parenting? Lots of people might think, oh, well, that's only an option when the child can talk. But isn't it applicable from birth? And what are the big things that we will be doing with our children from
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can be a conscious parent even when your child is in the womb. You know, I remember giving birth to my last one, and my last one was crying, you know, the first second or two of, you know, like, being out suddenly, breathing air. That's a big thing, right, for a baby. And I was looking at my baby saying, oh, yeah, it's okay. I'm here. It's fine. I'm just here, you know, and just doing that, it's actually already showing your child, it's okay, you're going through a tough spot right now, but don't worry, I'm here. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here to support you. And, you know, and it's okay to go through tough moments, but I will be there. So I think it's actually very important to talk to your baby. Don't think that changing a diaper, it's just a stupid moment. Actually, when you change the diaper, when you give a bath to a baby, when you feed a baby, when you just, you know, carry your baby, you can talk to your child. You don't have to talk all the time. You know, it could be also a bit too much, but, you know, just saying to your baby, hey, I'm going to change your diaper now, explaining what's happening to them. So that's a very respectful way of doing things. I think it's very important because your kids, that's how you connect with your kids. That's those moments, because mainly for a baby, it's caring for them physically, not only physically, but that's how they will feel better because you touch their skin, you will talk to them, they will associate those moments to good moments, connecting moments with the parent or with the caregiver. And I think it's actually very important to do that. So talk to, even in the womb, you can talk to your baby in the womb. Even when I remember also being pregnant and I had to go through something, you know, at the dentist, and it was really loud. And I was telling myself to the baby, it's okay. It's okay. It's nothing to do with you. It's just me. Don't worry. Everything is fine. So it was calming me down. which in a way was also dealing with my child. So you know, you can do that from, it's, as I often say, conscious parenting is a mindset. And once you have that mindset, it's not just a method you apply, it's more a mindset.
Okay. We have a lot of questions and only 50.
Okay, let's go.
To go over a little bit if needed.
I'm fine. I'm okay. No problem.
I've read that you need to teach a child consequences and not punishments. My 2.5-year-old toddler often tries to hit or pinch my 4-month-old baby. We tried everything from explaining it to him, not making a big deal out of it, telling him firmly, etc. I find that some things like that have no natural consequences. Baby brother isn't able to react to it yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are outright not the right thing to do. I try respectful parenting as much as I can with my toddler, but oftentimes there's no outcome. How do I teach them the right values whilst being able to implement respectful parenting in situations like this?
Yeah. So the thing is, at this age, we need to know why he's pinching the baby. Okay, is it, and I would need to dig a little bit more to understand and to help the child. I think in that case, SleepTalk would be great, because I'm 2.5, I got a new baby, I can see I'm losing attention from my mother. So what do I do? So either I'm directing my anger on the baby, which is definitely something you have to address, because that means you know, your toddler, who cannot understand really the consequences of what he's doing, you cannot let the toddler with the baby, you know, even 1 minute, you know, because you need to make sure that everybody is safe. So that's the number one. Maybe I'm doing that because every time I do that, oh, I get so much attention from my mommy, because negative attention is better than no attention. So that's what I'm learning when I'm a toddler. And that's why also kids have tantrums to get what they want, because they get that, oh, when I ask nicely, I don't get it. If I have a tantrum, I have it. So what I'm going to do is having a tantrum every time I want something. So we need to understand what's going on here. Is it just because I'm exploring? Oh, wow, I see the power I have. Every time I pinch the baby, I have so much power. Mommy is getting super angry. Baby is crying. Oh, then I understand my power. So I'm trying, I'm exploring. And then we have to redirect in a different way. How can I maybe do gentle hands and stuff like that? So I think maybe that age, and considering the situation, because the child there is a new baby in the house, I wouldn't focus so much on the consequences. I would explain, oh, you know, it's painful, but I wouldn't dwell too much on that. I would focus on a more positive behavior, when what the child can do with the baby that is more positive and acceptable, showing I give you attention when you do that. So the child will change the pattern. Instead of pitching, I will go for, and I will just, you know, do gentle hands. So otherwise, I would maybe need to focus, I mean, talk with the mom to know a bit more what's happening, what is the dynamic here, to direct maybe a bit better. But that's what I would do.
And I already know that we won't have time to talk about SleepTalk.
Okay.
But whoever it was that asked this question, or anybody who's interested anyway, please remind me in our WhatsApp groups, and then I'll try and send you the recording that we have from
Yeah, that was more about SleepTalk. Yeah. So SleepTalk in a nutshell would be positive affirmations to help the child feel good inside. And I really recommend to do SleepTalk when you have a second or third child, because for a first child, when my parents have a second one, it's a bit confusing, and suddenly I don't have all the attention. So then I feel like maybe my mommy and my daddy, they don't love me as much as the baby. Maybe they love me less, and maybe they're going to replace me. And that's not a good feeling. And even though we're saying the opposite and we don't feel that way, you know, that's how they feel. So SleepTalk will help to bridge that, to help to actually remove those negative feelings. And because it's basically positive affirmations. So yeah.
Okay, how can we deal with a child who does not want to go to school and is not able to verbalize yet because they're only 2 years old? Is it a battle to fight, or is this something we should let go of and take a break from school or change school? What do you recommend? What kind of do you recommend?
So again, I would need to understand a bit better the situation. The possible things I see would be one, separation anxiety with the parents. Maybe I like school, but the separation is too painful when I'm 2. So actually, I don't want to do that. So then I would focus on positive stuff to do while going to school that the child wants to do, and that would help with the separation anxiety. If it's something that's happening at school and then I'm getting stressed because maybe some school in Singapore, you have a lot of different styles. So some can be very strict. So if the school is still pretty strict with rules, and maybe the child is not, especially if the style is different at home, maybe that's too much for the child, and maybe either changing school or having a break could be a good idea. But yeah, I would need to understand a bit more what's happening. Is it the teachers or the style of the school? Is it there is one friend that is maybe too imposing? Because you have a lot of different style. That's when you start to get to know that you have a lot of different people in this life and different style, and you don't always like everybody. So so maybe understanding, is that a specific child? Maybe something specific happened, and the child is not able to verbalize, but it's like a little trauma, and then we need to help with that. So I would need to understand a bit more what is, and talking. So talking first, I would talk to the teachers. Maybe I'm sure this mom already done that, but trying to understand better what's happening at school. Is it something happening at school, or is it more the separation anxiety? And separation anxiety, if it's separation anxiety, then you need to fill the cup. So maybe spending a lot of time with the child, so the child feels, oh, okay, I had a lot of mommy time already, so I feel good. And then you prepare something to do after school. So I'm looking forward after school also, because then I see mommy again, or daddy, or, and so yeah, so that would be the different directions I would go.
Amazing, thank you. So I have one question. That one actually came in as the very first, and I've left it too late. Sorry, Charmaine, but it deals with older children. So parenting young adults, 18 to 20 years, how should the parent's role continue to engage, support, and enable the child to be independent, but remain connected in a way that encourages healthy dependency and also encourages open communication? She's asking on behalf of a family friend who's managing 3 children across genders and life stages, 13-year-old, 16-year-old, and 18-year-old, and also asking ahead for her 5-year-old, because it's never too early to think about, what the kind of parent we want to be for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, I mean, again, I think we have little time for that, because it's a big question. Again, it really depends on the child, because when you are a teenager, then you have your character, you have a different temperament. So you have to take that person and see and understand better the dynamic between the parents and the child. But as you mentioned, I think a lot of the type of relationship you will get as teenagers comes from the kind of relationship you started to build from day one. So I'm not saying, oh my God, if you don't do the right thing when your child is 5 or 10, everything is lost. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, a lot of things built from that moment. So, and it's talking about that respect we talked a lot about today. Understanding that person is different from yourself. They might have different aspirations, different temperament, and that's okay. So I think, again, accepting a lot your child for who or she is the number one thing. And still showing and explaining, the values you want to pass on. But normally when I'm 18, I kind of know what is, honesty and stuff like that. So so I think it's then trusting your child. And doesn't mean you don't have like rules. Like maybe the rule is, if you're part of the family, you have to help and do different things, and continuing asking for that. So yeah, respecting boundaries definitely for teenagers. That's a big thing. But again, I would need to see more what is the dynamic, because then we're talking about the specific dynamic between two persons. So it's very general advices, not necessarily very easy to apply if I don't know how to what's the exact dynamic between parents and child.
It's something you offer as well, right? As I mean, as a parenting coach and counselor, I think a lot is about having individual sessions to understand what's going on, and for the more than anything for the parent to realize where they're at and what their challenges are, and what they're struggling with, and giving them tools maybe as well. So I think those individual
Yeah.
sessions are really important.
Yeah. So it's individual sessions are great because then you can focus on your specific issue, and it's more obviously it's more confidential. I have also a parenting classes, so this is more like to understand, because you have stuff. If you don't know about the brain, or if you don't know about the stress because it's not your area of expertise, which is totally fine, then knowing and having more awareness about that really can really help you understanding better the situation, and then naturally dealing better with the situation because you know better, because you are more aware. So group classes could also be beneficial. So it really and then you also meet other parents, so you feel like, oh, I'm not alone, which nobody is, for sure. We all go through those painful times, totally, definitely.
And to Charmaine as well, if I can add, there's a wonderful lady, Mandy Spray, in the UK, who deals specifically with adolescence and parenting in that time of upheaval and so on as well. So maybe that is a resource that they can look at as well, for older children. Okay, I've another question, which is, my older one is 6 and the younger one is 3. He's nice to her in front of us, but when we're not looking, I've heard he's rude to her, hurts her, pushes her, and she can't defend herself. So she will start screaming or crying, and then he starts saying sorry. How do we teach him to genuinely care for his sister and everyone else around him, and not to be nice just because he's scared of getting scolded?
Yeah. So I think this kind of situation is really to help your child understand what it feels to be treated that way. I think it probably does that because so either because another kid is doing that to him or her at school. So that might be one reason, or at school, at the playground, or somewhere. So he's trying on the younger sibling because it's easier, for sure. So it's expecting that will happen. They will learn a lot of bad language and bad behavior from outside also. That will happen. Maybe he still has a feeling that we're protecting the younger sibling more often. So when adults are not looking around, he's gonna pour his anger at the younger sibling. So again, maybe SleepTalk could be a good thing to help, because when you feel better inside, it's easier to act good outside. You see, so we really talk about self-esteem. People who have good self-esteem, they don't feel like they need to put other people down. So that's really what SleepTalk is about. A good self-esteem, building that self-esteem. So that might be a reason. So again, it could be, I'm just exploring my power. When I do that, I have more power, I get more attention. That could be that. SleepTalk would help. It could be just because I still feel angry and I'm not able to verbalize it. And sometimes younger siblings can be very annoying. Maybe I feel a lot of parents are saying, oh, come on, it's your younger sibling, give to your if she's younger, or he's younger, just give it to him, and all of that. And that can feel very unfair for older siblings. So being able also to see that, are we doing that? And if so, can we sometimes put the balance a little bit in a different way? Like saying to the younger sibling, stop annoying your brother or your sister. And then your brother doesn't have to retaliate because they feel like they cannot play by themselves, they are always bothered. So that is also often what's happening with siblings. So understanding again the dynamics, sometimes increasing, giving space to the older sibling, so the older sibling doesn't feel he has to push back the younger one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, and we'll close off with a comment that it seemed as a comment in the first instance. So I wanted to get to the actual problems that parents were experiencing and ask. But I think a lot of moms actually want this topic covered, and this is so I'll read it out.
Yes,
and
yeah.
I'd like you to respond, and I have my things on it as well. So this mom was saying, I don't get why as parents we're often told that we need to first resolve our own childhood trauma. react to our kids is not always about our own childhood. At times it's more about just being so physically and mentally exhausted that we react harshly towards our kids.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's true. You not everything is about what went through for you, for sure. And not everybody has a childhood trauma. And often we actually don't think we do until we start to dig a little bit more, or until we go into a situation where we don't see how to get away from that, and then we feel very overwhelmed every day about situations. I had parents telling me, I hate Sundays because Sundays the helper is not here, and I don't know how to deal with my helper, without my helper. And when you hear parents saying that, of course you could be like very tired. I mean, I have 3 kids. I totally get it. It's very, very tiring. So you don't always have to look at your own traumas, but it helps to get to know yourself better, because the thing is, your kids will push your buttons, and you see that when, the same situations, your partner is not annoyed at all, and you get very triggered. So it means your kid pushed a button, and he pushed the same button for your partner, but it's not an issue. So your partner is like, why are you getting so mad at it? It's just like, this, but you feel very boiling inside. So in those instances, it means there is maybe something, maybe you need to work a little bit on. So it doesn't have to be you go for like 10 years therapy. It's not like that. But if you do feel that those situations happens a lot, and you don't really know how to deal with that, maybe that's when it could be useful to actually try to unpack it, so you understand better exactly the example I gave of jumping on the couch or not. It could be from your parents, not like a trauma per se, but maybe it's very triggering because it was triggering your parents, and you were very scolded at those times. You realize it's different for you now as a parent.
Trauma is a very harsh word, I think,
Yeah.
And I think it's not always that. It's just patterns as well that subconsciously we're carrying with us, because that's how we were brought up. And I think it's examining that and seeing, why is this so difficult for me to accept, or redefining what is important to me and the kind of parent that I want to be. I think this is what it's all about, right? Realizing that.
Yeah, in trauma, we often talk about big T's and little T's. But the mechanism on your brain would be kind of similar. It's like you're stuck on a pattern, and you don't know how to unstuck yourself. So that would be the same idea.
Yeah, amazing. And there are so many moms, I love it, who want to request a session where we can talk about tools for self-regulation, for regulating the sympathetic nervous system, and all of that, and a list of resources. So I would really appreciate, Maguelonne, if you have anything like Instagram accounts that are good to follow, because not everything out there on TikTok and necessarily evidence-based. So it would be, or the one book that you recommend for mom to read.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I have a list of resources. So I do have a lot of parenting books. The thing is, I don't like to overwhelm moms and parents, because life is already overwhelming. So I usually put like the main ones that I think are most useful, but I'm always happy to recommend different ones, because some are more directed on this topic. So like if anybody wants to tell me, do you have something more specific on that? So I have books for kids to explain stuff, books for parents, Instagram account. Yes, I sometimes I feel Instagram accounts can be quite overwhelming too. So I'll do like the books or the podcast maybe. But yeah, I'll
a list of podcasts that will also be really important.
Yeah.
Mom mentioning the whole brain child.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Amazing. So if you can get that to me, then I'll post it under the YouTube and send it out in the WhatsApp groups as well.
Yeah, I can.
Oh my God, I loved our session today. It was
me too.
Bounce back and forth, and you were absolutely right. It's better to do it that way than have a PowerPoint presentation where everybody falls asleep. Parents in the chat, so happy to have had you here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely.
Really, really lovely questions here that were so, so important to cover. And so basically you just directed our coffee morning, and that's really great to see. Okay. Maguelonne and I will work on a session, I promise. It might not happen immediately, but we will definitely put something together so that you moms have better tools as well. Okay, thank you again, Maguelonne, for joining us this morning, and all the moms who were there too. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.